We think we are so smart. We look at the stock market, we look at crypto, we look at NFTs, and we tell ourselves this is the future. We see prices going to the moon, and we feel that itch, that fear of missing out, the FOMO. But what if I told you that human psychology hasn't changed in 400 years? What if I told you that the exact same madness you see on Wall Street today happened in the 1600s? And it wasn't over a digital currency, it wasn't over a tech company, it was over a flower. A simple flower that lives for a few weeks and then dies. At the height of the madness, a single bulb of this flower was worth more than a mansion on the most expensive canal in Amsterdam. People sold their land, their life savings, and their dignity just to own one. And then, one morning, it all went to zero. This is the story of Tulip Mania, the first financial bubble in recorded history, and is a warning for every investor alive today. To understand the madness, you have to understand the mood. The year is 1630. The place is the Dutch Republic, modern-day Netherlands. The Dutch were the masters of the universe. They controlled the spice trade. Their ships sailed to India, Indonesia, and the Americas. Gold was pouring into Amsterdam like water. They had the world's first stock market. They were the richest citizens in Europe. And when a society gets too rich too fast, it gets bored. They wanted something to show off. Gold was too common. Jewelry was too tacky. They needed a status symbol that screamed, "I am better than you." Enter the tulip. This flower wasn't native to Europe. It came from the Ottoman Empire, from Turkey. It was exotic. It was fragile. It was beautiful. Having a tulip garden was the ultimate flex. It meant you were sophisticated. But then, something strange happened. Nature played a trick on the economy. Most tulips are solid colors, red, yellow, white, pretty but boring. But occasionally, a tulip would bloom with spectacular, flame-like stripes, red streaks on white petals, purple on yellow. They were stunning. They looked like art painted by God. The Dutch didn't know it at the time, but this was actually caused by a virus, the mosaic virus. The flower was sick, but this sickness made it rare. And in economics, rarity equals value. Everyone wanted the broken tulips, but you couldn't just grow them. It was random. This uncertainty turned gardening into gambling, and the Dutch loved to gamble. By 1634, the obsession had moved from the gardens of the rich to the taverns of the common man. The mania began. You see, tulips only bloom for a few weeks in spring. You can only move the bulbs in late summer. But people wanted to trade them all year round, so they invented a financial instrument that Wall Street still uses today, the futures market. They started buying and selling contracts. I promise to buy this bulb from you next June for 100 guilders. They called it windhandle, trading in the wind. Because no one actually had the bulbs, they were trading pieces of paper representing flowers that were still sleeping in the ground. The prices started to tick up. Then they started to run. Then they started to fly. The chimney sweep, the farmer, the maid, everyone stopped working. Why work for wages when you can buy a tulip contract and double your money in a week? Let's talk about the peak, the winter of 1636. At this point, logic had left the building. The most famous bulb was the Semper Augustus. Only about a dozen existed in the entire country. At the height of the bubble, a single Semper Augustus bulb was valued at 10,000 guilders. To give you context, the average skilled worker earned about 150 guilders a year. So one flower was worth 60 years of salary. There is a famous historical record of a trade where one bulb was exchanged for 2 lasts of wheat, 4 lasts of rye, 4 fat oxen, 8 fat pigs, 12 fat sheep, 2 hogsheads of wine, 4 tons of beer, 2 tons of butter, 1,000 pounds of cheese, a bed, a suit of clothes, and a silver drinking cup. All of that for a root that could rot, a root that a mouse could eat. But nobody cared about the root. They only cared that the price would go up tomorrow. It was the greater fool theory. It doesn't matter if the asset is worthless, as long as there is a greater fool willing to pay more for it than you did. But bubbles have a physics of their own. They expand until the tension is too great, and then, without warning, they pop. It happened in Haarlem. February 3rd, 1637. It was a routine auction. A plague outbreak had scared some people. A seller offered a bulb for a high price. No one bid. He lowered the price. Silence. He lowered it again. Still silence. In that deafening silence, the spell was broken. Suddenly everyone realized, wait a minute, it's just a flower. Who is going to eat this if I can't sell it? Panic is faster than greed. Within hours, the news spread across the Netherlands. There are no buyers. Everyone rushed to sell. But to whom? Everyone was a seller. There were no buyers left. The crash was vertical. Prices fell by 90%, then 99%. People who went to bed rich woke up bankrupt. Rich merchants were reduced to beggars. People who had sold their family farms to buy a piece of paper now held nothing but a worthless contract. The courts were flooded with lawsuits. He promised to pay me 5,000 guilders. But the judges threw their hands up. They declared that these debts were gambling debts and couldn't be enforced by law. The contracts were void. The wealth evaporated as quickly as it had appeared. It was just wind. We look back at the Dutch and we laugh. How could they be so stupid over a flower? But are we any different? In the 1990s, we did it with Beanie Babies. In 1999, we did it with websites that had no income. In 2008, we did it with houses we couldn't afford. And today? You tell me. The asset changes, the technology changes, but the human operating system does not. Greed, FOMO, and the delusion that this time is different are hardwired into our brains. Tulip Mania teaches us a simple lesson. Price is not value. Just because everyone is buying it doesn't mean it's worth anything. The Dutch survived the crash. They went back to painting, sailing, and building, and ironically, the tulip is still the national symbol of the Netherlands. But it serves as a beautiful, colorful gravestone for the savings of thousands of people who thought trees could grow to the sky. I'm Finance Epics. And remember, when the shoeshine boy gives you stock tips, it's time to sell.